Hello, hello. Hi, guys. Welcome to Let Loose with Lou. This evening is a really cool topic.
Indeed, Lou. You want to say a little bit more about that?
Yes. Would you mind? Would you do the honors?
Yeah, absolutely. Tonight we are lucky enough to have some really wonderful guests, and we're talking about um, uh, life after having a child or a family member who was murdered. Uh,
I know. How
Let me
how
just say
much
that again.
easier?
I kind of choked me up just saying it. This conversation tonight is about people who have their real time experience being a loved one, a sister or brother, or a mother or father to someone who died by murder. And we're going to be talking about that in a very real and authentic way. So I can
Yes.
introduce the guest, or you can.
Absolutely. Yes. We have Natalie, right? And she is with Crime Stoppers. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Natalie, would you like to give us a little bit of yourself or
Sure, I'd be glad to talk about that. So, thank you so much, Lou and Steve, for having me here tonight, and Kathy for making sure that I could be part of this great panel. So, I have been the executive director of Los Angeles Regional Crime Stoppers for the last 11 years. I was with the Sheriff's Department. I was a director of our community partnership programs. And when we had two mothers come forward to, at that time, Sheriff Baca, and say, we have Crime Stopper programs all over the country. How come we don't have one in Los Angeles County? And
interesting?
Crime Stoppers is an anonymous tip line that anybody can call, text, or email in any crime tip.
I
So go
I
ahead.
remember, sorry. I remember in the 80s it was pretty popular in the 80s, but now that I think about it, it kind of died down, right? Like was it brushed underneath the rug or what happened cuz it was pretty
Well,
popular.
good question. Because initially, one of the most popular programs at that time was known as We Tip,
Mhm.
and We Tip stood for We Turn In Pushers, and it was because of the whole epidemic with cocaine
Mm.
being dealt, crack cocaine out on the streets, and so people were outraged at seeing all this drug activity and the damage that it wreaked havoc, as Steve, you know, on a number of families and communities. So We Tip started out trying to get people to report crime anonymously.
Mhm.
They're still around there for a for-profit company right now, whereas Crime Stoppers is a nonprofit. And we have Crime Stopper programs throughout the entire country.
Wow.
So you could be on vacation, and if you saw a crime and you wanted to report it anonymously, you could still use our 800 number. You could
Interesting.
report it on our website. We have a mobile app that you can use. And again, we will make sure that that tip gets to the appropriate law enforcement agency for investigation.
Wow.
So
Steve,
I'd like to hear more about that, but I want to continue to introduce our
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 guest.
guest this evening.
Yes. We have Kathy. Kathy, thank you once again for being here.
No
We
problem.
appreciate that. Thank you. I don't have my glasses and my lens popped out of my eye. So, from the Alley chapter of Parents of Murdered Children and kind of slash family, right? Because it's grown. It's
Mhm.
grown not only children now, but also family members.
Right, families or friends or colleagues, anybody that's lost somebody to homicide,
Yes.
right? So,
Yes. And then we have our guest, Marcy. Marcy, thank you so
thank
much for being here
you.
because it takes a lot of bravery to give this, to say the story. And I
Give your
know,
experience. So we're
yes.
really happy to have you here.
Thank
And
you.
I got
Thank
the
you for
chills
having
because
me.
this is, yes, it's so meaningful. And with your story, hopefully something can be solved or we could help someone in need
Yes.
because I know that there's family members that go into depression and they don't or they don't know how to find the resources.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
And I wanted to add there, Marcy, when I was on your program before, the whole reason that you've invited us back was, Parents of Murdered Children is dedicated to the aftermath of murder and the prevention. And
Yes.
so we I, at the local level, have 102 unsolved murders that I really wanted to focus on and try to get some resolution to those. But also my national, which I sit on the National Board of Trustees, we started a committee just to focus that, and we want to provide resources to our family
Yes.
members and members across the country to help them get their cases solved. And that's where organizations like Crime Stoppers comes in and others. So,
Absolutely. So if there is anybody out there that has had an experience with losing a loved one due to a murder, there are resources, correct?
Yeah.
There
There
are
is
resources and they're right here. I think this is gonna be a great conversation tonight. So I think if
absolutely.
you're a viewer and hopefully you're interested in the subject, this should be, hopefully some good news or a breath of fresh air to know that these people are out there, that if you are a member of a family where someone was killed, you can call Kathy. You can go to the chapter of Parents for
Mhm.
Murdered Children and get the support. Or if you're
Absolutely.
scared and you're freaked out about giving a crime tip to the authorities directly, you can call Stoppers. Excuse me. You can talk to Natalie directly or one of her people and give the information you have. And then also we have real people who have had the experience themselves who are willing to share about it. So I think this is a breath of fresh air. I think this can be really um, resourceful to those who need this, and also inspiring to hear people like
Yes.
on the back end of an experience like you've been through, Marcy, like working it out. And that's kind of the way where we
Right.
should start. Is I don't know if it
Yes.
feels right to do it that way, but maybe you
Sure.
could share a little
I
bit about
think,
who you are and how this all started.
well, I'm Marcy, and I
Hi,
have a
Marcy.
sister.
Thank you.
My sister Monica was murdered in 2021.
Oh,
So we just not celebrated, but we just had her
her
anniversary, and it was
anniversary.
May 2nd,
Mm.
2021. So it's been 3 years. But yeah, POMC has been a great resource. I don't even know, Kathy, how we connected.
a
Uh,
friend, I forget which
I was in
friend
such a fog,
reached
so I
out
don't
to me and
remember
said, I
how,
have a
but
friend who needs help.
yeah,
And
Yes.
then I contacted you and
yeah.
come to find out.
So when a murder happens, does POMC get
Oh,
a list of those?
Not
Or I know we connected through a
not
friend, but
necessarily. It's usually friends or the sheriffs and,
yeah, I couldn't remember
resources out
how,
there. Yeah.
but I just remember going to like my first meeting, and
and this was 3 years ago?
3 years
Oh, so
ago.
this is very recent.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Oh.
so I want to say it was like week 2 that Kathy had a meeting, and my husband and I
Mhm.
went, and I just remember just being greeted with people that have gone through the same thing, which, if you haven't gone through the same thing, it's kind of like awkward to talk about with people
Yes.
that, haven't experienced it. It's not like a great subject to bring up all
Yes.
the time. But at POMC was like a normal conversation
Conversation.
about every detail that you can talk about, as much as you wanted to talk about. And then, like she mentioned, there was resources. She puts on these day events with like Crime Stoppers and other families that have gone through the similar murders. Gosh, she put on
We
so
just tried
many,
to
yeah,
provide
Yes.
resources to them and provide places where they could come and be around other people.
That
And
I've
like she says,
experienced.
talk about
Mhm.
the worst thing that can happen to you without being judged, without somebody telling you stop talking about it, get over
yeah,
it, or whatever.
Mm.
They're
right,
as time goes on, friends, family, sometimes they don't know how to deal with it. They don't want to hear it anymore. And POMC and places like that
yeah. It's
provide
really a
that
safe
arena
place
where
to talk
you
about
can
that.
And
talk
that's
about it.
true. I had someone once said, "Oh, your dad's in a better place now." My dad had passed away, and
Yeah,
it'll get better.
right.
And I was like, "Oh," like I was
No,
like, "No, it's
such
not
the
gonna get
wrong
better."
thing to say.
Yes, and
Yes.
I was so angry and devastated for so long because I'm like, like how dare you? Like, and I knew that they meant well, but I wasn't in the right
At that time and
place
To
place, yeah.
receive
yes,
that,
and
yeah.
I said, "I will never tell a person that lost a loved one that it's okay, that it's gonna get better," because no, it doesn't,
Right.
Yeah.
and it might, but we feel that
Right.
it doesn't,
It's
and
like this thing they say like, "Oh, you'll get over it." And it's like, "No, you don't get over
yeah,
it.
I don't think so
You're gonna walk through
through
it,
it,
and you're gonna walk through it with people
Can you
and
say that again? I think that's very
alongside."
important to say.
Yeah.
Because that was said, "Oh, it's gonna get better.
Yeah.
You're gonna get through it, or you're gonna get over it, and maybe not now, but in 3 years or 4 years, and you really don't.
you don't,
You know,
You
you
know,
don't.
it's
What's more accurate for you,
it's something
Marcy?
you wake
What would
up honestly
Yes,
every day.
I'm so sorry, I'm so
but
sorry.
I
Like you
think the
do
difference
wake
for
up.
Marcy is, I know, I think, the difference for people like us that have been through this homicide thing is, a car accident's one thing, cancer diagnosis is
Yeah,
another, um, but homicide, when somebody
yeah,
has made the decision to
yeah.
take your loved
Your
one's
loved one, yeah.
life,
That's
and now
just
you have to deal with the judicial system and the law enforcement and the anger and the pain and see
Yeah,
them in court and then like in Marcy's
right.
case when it's unsolved, every day that goes by that a case is unsolved, no matter what kind of crime it is, you're re-victimizing that person because somebody is not being held accountable
mhm.
for what they did. And not only that, they're out there on the streets, possibly doing it again to somebody else.
While you're
So,
sitting at home
Yes,
wondering who it is,
so it is.
when they're gonna get caught, what happened,
So
what
can
exactly happened, why did it happen?
would you mind just giving us a little background on your sister's name? How old was she? The
Yes.
details?
My sister's name was Monica.
Mhm.
She was 43 when she was murdered.
43.
She's a mom.
Mm.
She has a son and a daughter.
Oh,
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, and she was just so fun, loving. Like
Mhm.
you guys, like I'm not lying when I say the whole community loved her.
Uh,
Like she had friends everywhere, and
Where does she work, if you don't mind me
she
asking?
worked um she worked at the city of Carson,
Okay.
and before that
Mhm.
we all worked at the Daily Breeze at one
Yes, I
point. We were
love the
all
Daily
sales
Breeze.
reps
I miss
there.
that.
So my dad worked there,
Yes.
and I started there, and then my sister Monica came in, and my sister Rosie. So there was
Yes.
like a generation of us that were
How
working there.
cool.
Marcy, did you guys or do you have clues on whether it was random or it was deliberate or
We don't know. We don't have that answer. I would love to know that,
Mhm.
but
okay?
it's interesting. Like, and that's why she's a good resource too, is because walking through
Mhm.
not knowing a
Mhm.
lot of it, you walk with your detectives, and they could only tell you so much,
Mhm.
and there's a lot they can't tell you, and so I have those questions. Like
Oh,
we do know that it was a Toyota Tacoma, a gray Toyota Tacoma. We
dark gray, light gray,
like the
matte,
silver
the
color,
silver? Okay.
so like the light silver color, I believe. They don't have a license plate
Mhm.
read, so we don't have a license plate, but they do know they get off, and she's sitting in my mom's porch, and so,
Mm.
but there's no video, so we don't know.
Hmm.
We do know she gets shot, and
So can we
but we
backtrack
don't.
just a
Sure,
little bit? So, how did this initiate? Like, was it in the morning?
it
It was
was.
certain, like, best way to try to help solve is like giving landmarks, right?
Yes.
We want to know
where it
landmarks, like
was and
where
everything.
she was
So
at.
she was at
Yes.
my mom's.
Hmm.
My mom lives in Wilmington. She
Hmm.
had just moved into my mom's house for about 2 months,
Hmm.
and my mom says she used to get up early. So this happened at
Hmm.
4:20 in the morning.
Now, did she have a broken relationship that she moved in with your mom? Uh,
No, she lived
okay.
on her own. She had her own
Okay.
house with her kids, and then she
Hmm.
sold that home,
Okay.
and she had just moved in with my
Hmm.
mom. So, but my mom says she would wake up early
Hmm.
to just go sit on the porch
Hmm.
and have a cigarette,
Hmm.
and then they would go to breakfast, or but that's where she was sitting, was on the porch when this happened. So we think it was random, but I don't know for sure.
Mhm.
Um,
So this happened on a Wednesday, Monday, or
this
what?
happened on a Sunday morning,
On a Sunday morning around, do you know about the time or
4:20 in the morning.
4:20? So on a Sunday about 4:20 in the morning
On Eubank
on
and
Eubank.
almost L
Wilmington.
Street.
Okay,
Yes.
almost L Street. Okay. Because, see, those landmarks are important in case
Important.
anybody can
Yes.
remember 3 years ago, right?
Right. 3 years ago.
And it was a silver or like
Toyota
Toyota
Tacoma.
Tacoma. Do you know more likely of the year or
I don't. They said it was an older model.
an older with or without a cab or?
Just a cover.
Mhm.
Lou's getting very specific.
Yes,
I-
because that's
the
best.
detail.
No, they
Yeah.
do know that it travels through Wilmington
Mhm.
also. I don't know if you're familiar with Wilmington, but there's a restaurant called Montoya's. And so
Oh,
they do
yes.
know that it travels around Montoya's.
Uh-huh.
For a while, they have it captured. And then, which, one of the theories is it could been gang related. And she just was, I hate to say it, the wrong place at the wrong time because she was at her home. So she was at her right place.
God.
But
And that happened to one of my friends' husband. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
yeah,
And it's been 6, 7 months since
yeah.
he's passed.
Wow.
What was the initial experience like when you learned about her death?
Um, wow, like a nightmare, devastating. I remember getting I actually my husband got the call from my sister, my younger sister. But we got very little detail. So all we knew was Monica was shot. And so I think our if I can look back, like my brain like safeguarded me thinking like she got shot in the leg or she got shot in the arm and the ambulance is there and they're about to take her. Like that's all I really could believe at that moment. And but I remember driving down there and feeling ill, like
Mm.
sick, physically
Mm.
sick.
Like your body knew.
Like my yes.
Intuition.
It's like looking back, I remember having down pull
Were you
over.
close to your sister?
Yes, we were all close. I was closer to my younger sister because we were both married and she was single. So, but we were all close. Yeah, we were a close family.
I just asked that because I've heard that sometimes where like the body just knows and it responds
It
so
was really
strongly.
yes.
Like
It was really interesting. Like I had to have him pull over because I felt like I was going to throw up.
Mm.
Like as we were about to turn the corner. And then I remember seeing as we park, I remember seeing like the yellow tape and the firemen and the ambulance there. And my brain starts computing, why isn't the ambulance leaving? Why is there no movement? Why, as my brain's trying to catch up to my body, probably knowing that.
what was it like after? Like what was the grief or I guess moving into the healing? What is that? What was that like or what's it been like?
Um, I don't think I mean, people say it gets better and maybe it will later, but I don't feel like it gets better. I mean, and I've been through counseling. I was in counseling because 2 years before that, we lost my brother
Mm.
to an illness, so at 40 years old.
Oh.
And so I had gone into counseling for that.
Mhm.
So it was good that I was in counseling when this happened. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
you've endured
It's
so
just,
much.
it's just
So this
hard
hasn't
to,
gotten any better. It's just still incredibly painful and
yeah. Yeah, it
like you
is.
said
And
earlier, you wake up and
you
you
really
think
do.
of your
You wake up
sister.
every morning, yes. And at the beginning, you wake up thinking like, was that a nightmare?
Mhm.
Like, did that really happen? Like, you almost lose them every morning.
Yes, that
Yeah.
is so
It's like what
true.
you were saying, Kathy. You said every day as a what did you say? A
Victim
reoffense?
re-victimization
Yes.
because you don't know who did it and they're not being held accountable. And I'm sure every day she wakes up, it's like, who did this? Like I'm sitting in 3 trials right now, murder trials, over the course of these few weeks, and you're hearing the details of what happened finally, and someday that's going to happen for her when we catch this person. But until then, in her mind, I'm sure it's racing all the time. Why? Who? What?
Mhm.
What caused
How?
this?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
What? All these questions. And someday, and I think once I'm, speaking, being in these trials, a lot of times the family's like, yeah, you hear some things you don't want to hear, but most of the time they're relieved to know exactly what happened so they could stop their mind from racing and
Imagining,
wondering and
creating
imagining
these
and
stories.
Right.
yes, yes.
It's not like we want to enjoy that detail. It's like
No.
you
No.
No,
just want to
no, you
know.
need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
it's interesting that we just need to know.
And there was
Natalie, Kathy, have you, or you as well, have you seen in your experience when a murderer is apprehended, that does bring some degree of healing or relief to a person or family, or what have you guys seen?
Well, I think a couple things just to backtrack on when Lou, you talked about landmarks. Um, One of the good things about talking about this on your show or in any other venue is that somebody out there knows who did it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Somebody saw it, somebody's heard someone brag about it, somebody knows. They know the car.
Mhm.
And one of the frustrating pieces is that it may take more than just somebody turning that person in. It's still law enforcement, the detectives still have to build that case against that person. And that's one of the reasons why we try to encourage so many of our victims and their families give us some information that we can put out on our social media, that we can get out on the news,
Mhm.
that if you have social media, you can remind people. If you have any information at all, you could report it anonymously.
Yes.
So it may just be that one little piece that helps unlock part of this puzzle or open the door to going after the
One
person or
step
persons
closer.
Yeah.
responsible. And sometimes, as we've seen, there's such a push on unsolved cases.
So Natalie, okay, this is really important to say, or I'm learning something right now, is just because, let's say, someone calls in and say, I know who it is, John Doe did this, et cetera, et cetera, that may not be enough to say, okay, law enforcement, go ahead and bring him in.
Right.
They have to build this
That's
case.
correct.
And so part of what you guys are doing, which is so critical, is literally just making one call and adding another piece to the puzzle
Mhm.
could be the piece that says, go get him now.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
they may already have a sense of who it is. They may already know who it is, but they
Right.
don't have enough information to bring the person in.
And that sort of ties in with what Kathy was saying, having been in courtrooms. The incident could happen, the arrest can be made. It could be 3, 4 years down the line before that actual court case takes
Yeah.
place.
And
And
there's that walk.
detectives may need that amount of time to be able to pull enough information together to have the district attorney file on it.
Mhm.
It's a very frustrating thing
Mm.
for a lot of people that have had these horrible things happen in their lives because we're so used to what we see on TV, where in 45 minutes that case is solved. Even the cold case ones, you're watching it and thinking, well, they got all that information. Could have taken them years to pull that
To
together,
build.
or it could have been weeks.
Right.
The lucky ones are the weeks.
Right.
But getting more and more publicity out about the incident, the more publicity that's out there, the better the chances are sometimes of finding somebody. But I know in working with a lot of detectives, they say, we got to hold back some details. We
Yeah.
see this all the time on TV. We've got to hold that back. We can't, we're not ready to go public with it yet.
So I'm thinking, and I'd like to hear your experience or response to this, but I almost feel like we could be talking to that person right now who's watching the episode,
Yep.
who heavy on your conscience, right? Like you have a puzzle
Yes.
piece, right? And there's a part of me that wants to say, like, I offer you compassion. Like maybe it's like a friend, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's like a someone you're terrified of yourself, but you heavy on your consciousness
Yeah.
to know that you have this piece that might actually
Solve
be enough to cause action,
Mhm.
Right.
So, like, I don't envy the position of knowing that information. I can imagine how heavy it is to kinda carry,
Yes.
but, like, if you don't give the information, you have to carry it, I don't know what that's been like. I'm sure maybe you've met people who've come forward and they're freaked out, like,
But
I
again, that's
what
why we're here. They could
Right.
do it anonymously.
Anonymously, yeah.
Your phone number does not come back like a 911 call. It's encrypted.
Mm.
If you put a tip on the website, your email address is encrypted. So we don't gather any information when you report a crime to Crime Stoppers. You're anonymous. You get a tip ID number and a passcode, and it's up to you as the tipster if you want to follow up and see, hey, what happened to my tip?
how often do you see, like, a tipster say, "Well, aren't I gonna have to testify later? Won't I have to reveal
That's
myself later? Like, I don't know that I have enough of the courage to do that," or
'Cause some
whatever.
people will
But you
probably
You
don't have to do that with Crime Stoppers. With Crime Stoppers, we, again, being a nonprofit, we raise money from private donations for rewards. We pay a reward of up to $1,000, depending on the type of crime, if your tip leads to an arrest only.
Mhm.
And one of the things that when we were looking at the bulletin for Marcy's sister, there's a $50,000 reward.
Yes.
Oftentimes, city councils, board of supervisors, even some private companies add an enhanced reward for crimes, but that's based on arrest and conviction. Ours is strictly arrest, and you do not have to go to court.
So can
So you
you
don't have to face
the person.
your fears, and look at it. A lot of people now think if I go to court, they're going to know who I am. There may be retaliation involved. I
Right.
can't take off work. What if I'm here? I'm undocumented. I can't take the risk of going to court and having something happen to my family. So again, this is a great way of providing an opportunity for the people that we're talking about there that feel that burden, that know you could do the right thing and you could do it anonymously by submitting that tip to Crime Stoppers.
Great.
And that's the beauty of Crime Stoppers is that you can do it without compromising yourself in any way, but bring resolution to
speak a
families
little
like
louder,
Marcy.
if you don't mind?
You know,
A little louder,
me,
Kathy? Yeah.
yeah, that's the beauty about Crime Stoppers is um, you can do it without compromising yourself, but still bring some resolution to families like Marcy.
Yes.
And getting a criminal off the streets.
Right.
Absolutely, which is more important. You don't want another family to go through
No,
this.
You
You
don't.
not
don't
at all.
want them to suffer. You don't want them to
No,
feel that pain because that's a hard
yeah.
pill to swallow,
But Crime
right?
Stoppers isn't just for homicide; it's for any crime,
Any
right?
kind of crime.
It could be
So,
rape. It could be
yeah.
anything, right?
Wow,
Auto
nice to
theft or
know.
We
whatever
have
whatever it is.
auto theft, hit and runs,
Wow.
trying to get people to turn in ghost gun manufacturers, copper wire theft, and this whole vandalism that's going on with our street lights that people
Yes.
think, how's that important? Well, it's important if your neighborhood is plunged into darkness,
Mhm.
and which could allow even more crimes to
Right.
occur.
Right.
Correct.
Catalytic converter theft,
Oh, yes.
scams that are going on that we have a partnership with our utility companies where they're very concerned because people are calling a business at the last minute and saying, "Hey, nobody paid your electricity bill and we're shutting it off in 30 minutes if you don't get
Oh my
a green
goodness.
card or what's it, the green dot card and
And pay
and
us.
pay it." There's all kinds of scams, the
Ugh.
romance scams, the kidnapping scams
Wow.
that are
Wow.
victimizing some of our elderly people. So any kind of crime that's out there, a lot of drug issues,
Mhm.
where people are dealing on our streets and
Mhm.
somebody's sick of it. And they, again, will submit a tip to help close down the drug activity that could be going
So
on.
how much information is this tip? Like how much do you need to give, or that would help you solve or the crime, or to
Well, that's a
yes.
great question, Lou. And obviously, we'd like as much
Okay.
information as possible. And on our website, if you do submit a tip through the
Yes.
website or the mobile app, we have a
Mhm.
free mobile app.
Mm.
It helps you out by asking the who, what, when,
Got it.
where.
Okay.
You could submit photos from your photo gallery.
Oh,
And again,
wow.
unless you're doing a
Yes.
selfie in front of the crime scene,
Yes.
no one knows that it's you.
Okay.
But you can submit that kind of
Mhm.
footage. And with all of that, we can get some really good tips.
Mhm.
Some of the tips are very marginal, that we don't have a lot of information, but it's not up to our Crime Stopper program to determine that.
Mhm.
It's our job to get the tip to the appropriate law enforcement agency for them to investigate it. Because again, we don't know. Maybe that tip didn't lead to the arrest
Mhm.
of that murderer,
Mhm.
but that tip opened the door to a home or an individual or a location that law enforcement has wanted to monitor,
Yes.
has wanted a little
One
bit more
step
information.
closer.
So you
Yes, to
don't know.
solving. Mhm. That's
Mhm,
pretty
mhm.
interesting. Yes.
What's it been like participating in POMC?
I think, like I mentioned before, it's just a great resource. It feels safe there. I feel like I have people to talk to about what's happening at any state of the case. Um, Not just with resources, but just
Mhm.
personally, with what's happening.
What's it like if you're gonna like say like? Because I can imagine like the first time you went there was probably like
Yeah,
scary or
I think I
whatever.
cried the whole meeting.
Like, what was it like to like get
Because you
gearing up
don't
to
know when
go
you're
and
when you're going there, you don't know what you're to expect,
Expect.
right? So, but we sit at a round table,
Mhm.
and it's also available by Zoom for
Mhm.
those that don't live in the area. So, and then we just go around the table, and I think Kathy has us mention our family member's name,
Mhm.
and who we are. If we're a mom, a
Mhm.
sister,
And do you go as a family? Does your parents and sisters do they
So
yell?
the first time my husband went with me,
Mhm.
and then I've been going alone
Mhm.
since then. And
Uh,
my mom has connected with
mhm.
one of the other members, and she also speaks Spanish, so it's easier for her to
Got it.
And
to work on us.
she's
So
been to a couple of the events, like the
yeah,
National
so
Day of
Kathy,
Remembrance events
yes,
we've had. And,
yeah,
we have a philosophy or a way of thinking is that, you know, everybody is going to grieve in their own way. And sometimes the support group setting is not for them.
Mhm.
So, okay, in her case, her mom needed a Spanish speaking
Mhm.
another mother.
Mhm.
So
yeah,
we've hooked her up. So now
Yes,
she's become friends, and that's her support.
that's
She
yeah,
may not
beautiful.
be comfortable in the support group,
Mhm.
but she's okay coming to the bigger events where it's not as intimate
Intimate.
in a little
Mhm.
support group where she comes to those kind of things.
Mhm.
It's like we try to provide a little bit for everybody,
Yes.
and
find what
everybody's
they
different.
need.
Like she said,
Yes.
everybody grieves differently. So
Yes.
I need as much as information. I'm just built that way. I
Yes.
want
Yeah,
to know
And that's okay.
everything.
Yes.
And so
yeah.
I like those meetings. I like this not just for support, but going in there. And she had like the sheriffs come in one day, and LAPD detectives came and talked to us. And you really look at the stats, and you're just blown away on how many unsolved murders there
There
are,
is.
how short staffed they are,
Oh.
you know. And how many cases go to the unsolved. So after 5 years, if they don't find who did it, it goes to another unit called
Oh.
unsolved murders. And so, but we had the opportunity to meet those
Mhm.
people that are the sheriffs or the LAPD
Yes.
detective that's in charge of that unit. So
Mhm.
I have their cards. I don't want it to go that long, but if it
Yes.
does,
Well,
then
hopefully
you
we'll
have
get a
resources.
step
Yeah.
closer. Now, I have a question for your husband, Dan.
Yes.
I have a question for you. How has it been for you to see your wife in so much pain and to grieve, and seeing her those nights or mornings just crying, and just how have you
What's it been like for you?
yes.
It's pretty rough. I mean, you have people in your life that, my father passed and that was tough, but to watch my wife go through that, and you almost feel helpless at sometimes, to where she's going through this, and I try and be there for her, but I can't fix it. And it's hard, because at the same time, I don't know what it's like to lose a sibling like that, and but I do know what it's like to lose a sister-in-law,
Mm.
and she's going through her grief and I'm going through mine, and I'm trying to stay strong and help her through and get through, and it's hard, it's difficult. I sometimes I feel like I have to put my feelings aside, to show up for her, and that's what I'm here for, and that's what I do, and I don't have a problem with that. But it is difficult, because you feel, when all this happened, you feel like the air has just been taken from your lungs and you can't breathe.
Mhm.
And it's the hardest thing in the world to watch my wife suffer in pain and hurt the way she did. It's tough.
And continues
It
because
does.
it's a long-term pain. And I just want to say, Dan, that thank you very much for being here with her as well, because that's such a huge support as a spouse.
Yes.
That's a lot. Like, I mean,
I have you both of you, right, have your own grief around this. Have you discovered, like, particular ways that you like being supported or loved by the other? Or are you still kinda discovering, like, I imagine that for some couples, this could really put a big ding in the marriage and draw them apart, you know? I could see others
Yeah.
where, somehow bonds them more deeply. I don't know what you would say about that.
You know, I think I've I think for us it's just brought us closer together, because that's my role as a husband, is to be there for her and to support her, when she can't support herself, and that's just what we do, and how we get there, and it's been traumatic. Just it's been difficult, but it's strengthened us. We've learned to help each other. We've learned to depend on each other. We've learned to communicate, and for me, I've really learned to listen. That I don't have to have the answer all the time, but just the fact that I'm listening to her, and have an understanding of or kind of what she's going through, and just being there for her. And it's a daily battle. It's a daily struggle. We She mentioned that this past month was her the anniversary of her death, and then next month is her birthday, and it's tough in our household. It's hard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's good days and there's bad days, and it it it, it doesn't get easier. You get used to it. You know.
I wanna say something to you real quick, then I wanna ask you something, Marcy. Um, Real quick, just as a man listening to another man who's a husband, I'm also a husband. Like, I want to really salute you. It's like an exemplary demonstration of what being a man is and being a
mhm.
husband is, and
Yes.
your instincts are so spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm really just hearing that you having the fortitude and the vulnerability at once to recognize your own experience, but also love your wife
Mm-hmm.
and listen to her.
And that was the key word, that he listens.
Mhm.
That's
Recognize
Yes.
that you're gonna need to be listened to sometimes too. I'm curious to hear your answer, but like before
Yeah.
I couldn't help myself. It's just such a demonstration of I think
beautiful.
what marriage
Yeah.
is about.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Dan.
No,
Thanks.
yes, he's like a gift from heaven, seriously. Like he couldn't have navigated that any better, I think, for me. So I know he had to put on a strong face and set his feelings aside, as I was falling apart. Um, but yeah, he showed up. And I feel like that's what a husband should, that's what it should look like. showing up for their wives like that. Because there was days where I would come home and I was just looking at him like, what do I do? And he would direct me and he would just say, we just got to stay fixed on, we're Christians. So he would say, we got to stay fixed on God. And, you know, we're going to walk this through this way. And I was like, okay. Like he would just, I just needed to hear which way should I go, and what do I do? But I do feel like that was set aside. So I feel like I'm talking with him a lot more about his grief. Like, you got to bring that out and let it out because I know that he stuffed it so
He's
much
reserved
because,
it.
yeah.
Yes.
So
But I
are
think
you?
what you brought up, Steve, about wreaking havoc on a marriage, they'll tell you that, especially with losing a child,
Mm.
most marriages don't survive it.
Oh,
They just don't. It's
Yeah.
it's just too traumatic, and
Right.
you don't have a husband like Dan or a wife that's understanding, and most of the time they don't survive it. But speaking to Dan, what was Dan was saying is that it becomes a new normal when your wife would come home and she was happy and she'd make dinner and the house was
Right.
clean and all the normal things. Now, all of a sudden, she's hurting emotionally and physically so bad
Yeah.
that
mentally.
she can't even keep it together, maybe on days. And Dan came home and there was no dinner and the house wasn't together.
That's true.
So it's a
Yeah.
new normal and your life becomes chaotic too. And he's got to have the patience or vice versa to understand that and get through the new normal because
And especially if
it's a
there's
different
children.
normal.
And
Right.
especially if there's children in the household, how did the children adapt to,
Hmm.
seeing their mom, hurt and in pain. And,
Right.
that's another step too, because the kids don't understand what's going on.
No.
So that must have been hard for you as well, right? With
Right.
children?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly like her kids, her daughter was 14 when it happened, and her son was 23, her oldest son. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure that was way more devastating than it was for me being that was their mom. Um,
Where are the children now?
I'm sorry.
Where are the children now?
Um, well, my nephew lived on his own,
Mhm,
and my niece is with her dad.
mhm,
And so, we're a big part of her life, and we see her often.
mhm.
And but it's not, we just had her for Mother's Day, and it's
Yeah.
not an easy thing,
Oh.
Yeah.
How's your
But
mom doing?
my mom is such a strong woman of faith, and
Mm.
she just, I mean, I'm sure she has her moments, but I look at her and I'm like, I want to be like her. She's so strong. She really is. She's lost two kids, and I don't know how she smiles.
Well, because she has
She's,
2 angels
I
right next to her. Look at that.
know.
You guys are her saviors
Yeah.
through these moments.
Yeah, that's my sister with the blue sweater, and then my younger sister.
Can
Um,
see it in your eyes and your photo
we all
there.
kind of look
There's a
alike.
lot of a lot of love shared.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that sense from your husband too. Lot of love in the family.
Yeah, him and my sister Monica, because she was closer to our age, so she got along really well with Dan, my husband. They had a little connection, so I'm sure there's.
What's the love that you see that your husband needs from you? Like he's does his part. What is the love that you see that he needs that you give to him?
I think just like what he said, just listen,
Uh-huh.
just be there and listen to how he's feeling. Um, yeah, not try to fix it because you can't. So
I'm really getting that, right? Like this is really a journey of accepting
mm,
something that can't be put back together.
yeah,
It's a permanent You're nodding. Yeah, it's like a
Well,
permanent brokenness. Like
Yeah.
you guys are the pros, right? See,
Nowhere.
like this is not
There's
something that
nowhere
you.
to go
Yeah.
but
yeah,
up, you hope,
yeah.
you know.
And the new, and bringing up the new normal just the other day. I mean, I've been doing this for 13 years, and my husband, he's so funny because he tells me, he goes, I could tell you, no, you can't do it, but you're going to do it anyway. He goes, I don't even bother. But the other day we were talking about getting out of town this weekend, right? And he thought I meant that I couldn't go at all, but what I meant was, no, I can go after this date because of the trials, and we could split it up or whatever. And the new normal, Dan, is that, you know, I said something about, well, this is my commitment. He goes, no, I'm your commitment, do you know? And so your new normal is different. It's like, I have to remember that, yeah, he's there for me all the time and lets me do this. Parents of murdered children supports me, not say lets me, but, supports me and
Supports,
whatever. But you get
Yeah.
caught up in it on a day-to-day basis and you forget
Yeah.
the other half and his needs or her needs, and that you have more than just this commitment to PONC, and sometimes you have to be reminded. But when you have husbands like Dan and like the one I have,
Yeah.
most of the time, that, but every now and then, he lets me know that he has needs. And so
Right.
we're going to the desert tomorrow.
Oh, fun.
Outstanding.
But yeah, you know what I mean. It is once
It is
once you
true.
commit
Yeah.
yourself to something like this that has happened to you, um, and your life has been changed. It is different. Your whole life has changed. You're not in this alone. Unless you're alone, totally alone. But my son, he sacrifices. He'll call me just hey, what are you doing today, Mom? I'm in court. Okay, call me later.
Yeah.
We're no average kid that can talk to their mom, not me. I'm in court.
Let me ask you something. I want to hear the answer from the three of you. Like it's heavy terrain that be working in. It's very heavy. At least to me, I experience as heavy. I think a certain constitution is required for this. How do you look after yourselves? Like I heard what you said. Like I can get kind of in the throes of it, and then my husband will have to kind of pull me out of the cave and be like, "We're going to dinner. We're going to the desert."
Yeah.
Like take how
Yeah.
what do you guys suggest? What have you discovered? How do you look after yourself? In this
How do you guys?
terrain.
Yeah.
do it.
That's a good question.
I know, because you
You
guys
know,
are-
I had a lot of years on the sheriff's department before this job, and I always thought, no, I've got to be at this meeting. I've got to be doing this. I worked a lot of nights, worked a lot of weekends, and and I would tell my husband, I've got to do it. They expect me to be there. And as you get a little older, your priorities shift a little bit, even though you still need to be there. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else.
Mhm.
And so
Very true.
forcing myself to get up in the morning and go to the gym,
Mm.
trying to play golf every once in a while. I play the piano, so
Nice.
it
That's
helps with
soothing.
having music.
Mm.
My husband's a good dancer, so we like to go
Ooh.
dancing.
There you go.
And
That's
saying no is one of the hardest things in the world for me to
Yes.
do.
Mhm.
But I have a huge family and they depend on me. And so I need to force myself to say no and try to keep things in perspective. But in the back of your mind, you see something on TV where somebody's been murdered, hurt, a hit and run, kidnapped. And I think, oh my God, I've got to get that out there. I've got to make sure that story gets out there so people will see it, and because someone knows who did it.
Right.
But balance is very tough.
I like hearing you say that. You've said it
Yeah.
twice now.
Yes.
Somebody knows.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's what I want to stress. That's one of the things I want to
I think that's
stress.
really
Important.
important.
Yes.
A message I'm getting beyond just like what the service is that you can call and it's totally anonymous.
Anonymous.
But that to remember, like someone knows the answer to the question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Steve,
You said it twice.
how many times, I don't know what kind of shows you watch, but if you watch any true crime shows or crime shows which a lot of people do. People are huge on that now.
Mhm.
And when you see the suspect, when the suspect is featured in any of that, the suspect likes to take credit for the harm that they've done to someone.
They like to
They
gloat.
take pride sometimes in that.
Mm.
And that leads to boasting, it leads to bragging,
Mhm.
it leads to all the things that we think are so awful in a human being. Someone around that person knows who committed that crime,
Yeah.
and they know it was him or her.
Mhm.
And you just pray that people have it within themselves to want to do the right thing and get that predator off our streets.
Right. Right.
That's
The
that's very
passion.
powerful.
That is
Yeah.
I've felt
powerful.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you guys look after yourselves?
Well, just moving into this year, the first thing I did after almost 13 years of kind of running the LA chapter by myself is I got myself a treasurer and I recruited a secretary because I'm actually moving into retirement, but I'm more busy than I was when I was working.
Yeah.
But just taking that load off of me has allowed me to do a little bit more of the things I like to do, like I do my family's genealogy, and that's one of the things I
That's
want to
really
do,
cool.
right? I love to read. I love to scrapbook and make cards and handmade cards and crochet. And I love to watch documentaries and, things like that. So, I know one of the things I've done this year is since I got a secretary and treasurer is come pretty much 5 o'clock things kind of shut down and I sit on the couch and I watch something with my husband, you
There
know.
you go.
So we've
Yeah.
had more time in the last 6 months than we've had in years
Good for you.
because I've kind of like said, that's it. Come unless it's like a brand new phone call, brand new mother, first time reaching out. Everybody else is kind of like, hey, we all have some downtime that we need to have.
Hmm.
Correct.
And like you say, if you can't take care of yourself, I can't regroup enough to get up and go do another trial the next day or go to some kind of law enforcement meeting
Mhm.
if you're not refreshed and regrouped. So, yeah, we got to make time for ourselves and
Yeah.
go to the desert once in a while.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Us too. I think we have a house in the desert too. So just doing little getaways without the kids
Mhm.
and being somewhere different, than
Yes.
your normal. But also just I love spending time with my kids and
Mm.
That's
just the
beautiful.
family at home. And they're 27. My boys are 27 and 21. And it's just, and their girlfriends,
Yes.
and then I have my niece come
Yes.
over. And so I don't know. It's just fun to be around each other
Each
and have laughter, fill the
Yes.
house.
Fill the house and warms
And
up the house.
yeah,
Correct.
and it's good for your heart too. So
Oh.
and
See, and
soul.
that's
Yeah.
one of the things that we talked in my other podcast is like when I can hear Marcy's laugh again.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
I hear her say she's got some joy in her life when the
Yes.
kids and the family's
Come
over,
together.
because 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago,
Right.
there wasn't much of that at all, but
No.
it's more of that now because we were just talking about that today is that we thought we never could laugh
Yeah.
again or have joy or whatever, but it
That's true.
comes.
Yeah.
It comes. It's just different, and that's always in the back of our heads, but
Yeah.
Like a
it
new
does
laugh,
come.
Me
like part what you're
too.
saying, a new normal. Like it's a new,
It's a new
Yeah.
a new
normal.
type of experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is because, and then sometimes you even feel guilty at
I was just
first.
gonna say,
Yeah.
Yeah,
sometimes
you
you feel
do.
Guilt.
guilty.
Yeah,
You
for
catch yourself.
yes. It's
Yeah.
like you're not, you're in this fog, this depression, and then you laugh. There's a moment where you laugh and you're like,
Is
I'm
that
not supposed
okay?
yeah, am I
Yes.
supposed to be laughing right
You
now?
kind
Like,
of feel like you're betraying them or something.
yeah.
Yes.
And I know it took me a while to like go out to an event, because that was hard because then the questions come, right?
Yep.
And
Mm.
so it but I remember having a friend that said to me, joy and sorrow, they can live together.
Interesting.
Like, you don't have to pick one. Like, they can live
Yes.
together. And it was almost like she gave me permission
Yeah.
to be happy and joy and have joy also,
And also
you know?
grieve. Yes.
Right, and also
I think
grieve.
that's a very good place to begin wrapping
Mm-hmm.
tonight
Mm-hmm.
is that wisdom from your friend, is that joy
Yeah.
and sorrow can they
Coexist.
can play together.
It can
Mm-hmm.
coexist,
It
yes.
would be in our humanity, right?
Right,
Yes.
To this your friend's point, to
right,
experience sorrow and deep sadness, deep pain, but also have
right,
the capacity for joy, and they're not like one or the other.
right.
So
Correct.
I'll just say, Lou, I thanks for putting this together.
Yes.
For putting together such a
Thanks,
wonderful
Kathy.
roster of
Kathy,
like resource and
Natalie,
experience and
and
intelligence and
Marcy.
inspiration.
Yes. I just want to thank you guys so much because once again, this is, it's very touching. And I hope that somebody out there knows any little detail,
Knows the answer to
any
the
answer.
question.
And you can reach out to Crime Stoppers if you don't want to be known, and or you could call at any time to the parents of murdered children. Somehow, some way, get some information out there
Get some
and
support.
some support. And if you're living through this, know that there is also help for you. You are always more than welcome to call Kathy, call Natalie, call anyone. Get a hold of Steve. Steve, he's really good with grieving, right?
I do have skill with grief.
He has skills, but there is a way to get help, and we are here to help them, right? This is
That's
what
right. I mean, that's
we're
what this
trying.
is. Like tonight, it's been a wonderful
Yes.
Yeah.
conversation. For me, I don't know what the experience is for you guys or for viewers, but for me, I leave the conversation with a sense of hopefulness.
Yes.
Yes.
Hopefulness.
Yes. Thank you,
Yes, thank you for
Kathy.
having
You're
us.
welcome.
Marcy,
Thank you
for
I
for
your
do
having
I
service.
do
us.
want to I
Natalie.
do want to share something, if that's
Yes.
okay.
Absolutely.
If you have a loved one that's going through something
Yes.
like this, sometimes it's just okay to just sit there and like with nothing to say and just be there for that person.
Yes.
And it's okay to just love on them. And you don't have to say anything huge, you know. I think for me, the people that were there that I felt connected to and supported by were people that really just showed up and didn't always have something to say, you know, and they
Correct.
just sat there with me and said they loved me and they were there just to support me.
That's
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, ladies, and Dan. Thank you so much for your story as well, and your thoughts and all this. And I pray that you guys come together. You guys heal and grieve and cry
Yeah.
and love on each other
Yes.
to
Thank
help
you.
each other grow stronger,
Yes.
not only for yourselves but also for your children,
Yes.
your family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
guys
having
very
us.
much. Thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you all for watching. And Steve, once again, thank you for a great episode.
Take it
Thank
easy,
you. Bye,
guys.
guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow.